Haunted Home Invasion Chronicles. 7 sinister stories revealed, terrifying secrets exposed. Sarah's heart raced as she approached her modest 2-story home in Maplewood, Ohio. Rain whipped against her face, cold and biting. The winds howled like a wild beast, sending chills down her spine. She fumbled with her keys, glancing over her shoulder, feeling each raindrop as a chilling reminder that something was wrong. Something was off. A storm brewed, not just in the sky but in the shadows of her life: unpaid bills, fear of foreclosure, and the ever-looming presence of despair as she stepped onto her porch. Her eyes fell on an ominous package, a faded cardboard box tied with fraying twine. It looked ancient, sinister almost, as if it had been waiting for her, a harbinger of danger. Trembling, she unwrapped it, revealing old photographs inside. Each image scratched at her psyche's smiling faces, fading memories, static in time, yet the air around her shifted. Her heart dropped as she noticed the missing persons in the photographs. Families who once laughed in their homes, vanished into thin air over 30 years ago, leaving only tragedy behind. Shivers shot through her body. That night, shadows danced along the walls, whispers crawled across her skin, and her fears spilled over. The neighbors' friendly faces that once provided comfort now felt like untrustworthy phantoms in the dark. A chill of paranoia tightened its grip around her throat. Even Sheriff Harris, who had previously reassured her, now seemed like part of the haunting atmosphere that surrounded her home. A condescending figure loomed over her fragile sanity. Days turned into a nightmare, each moment punctuated by strange occurrences. Claw-like scratches appeared on the living room walls, words floated through the air, hastily written in a language she couldn't comprehend. As Sarah clutched her children, Ethan and Lily, close, desperation clawed at her heart. She had to protect her little ones from the unseen horrors that crept around them. But one evening, she turned around to find them missing from the yard, swallowed by the abyss of night. Ethan, Lily, her voice cracked, piercing through the suffocating silence of Maplewood. Panic flooded her veins as she raced down the empty streets. An eerie quiet hung oppressive in the air, amplifying her cries. Shadows twisted around her ankles. What should have been familiar now felt like a nightmare. Would she find them, or would she become another name on the long list of disappeared? As desperation clawed at her insides, she stumbled upon a narrow, hidden trail leading into the woods, her heart pounding now with electrifying urgency. Just ahead, dark figures stood unmoving, their silhouettes strange and grotesque against the dim light of the moon. Sarah crept forward, adrenaline surging. These weren't just neighbors, they could be the very hand of fate behind those missing smiles from years past. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As she stepped closer, dread seeped into her bones. The citizens of Maplewood, those who once offered neighborly warmth, now felt like part of a dark tableau, unsettled, hidden truths lurking just beneath their facades. She came to a horrifying realization. Not all missing persons are tales of the past, some still linger, trapped between light and darkness. Time was running out. Could she rescue her children, or would she be consumed by the very shadows she feared? The darkness of Maplewood whispered her name, a haunting call drawing her deeper into its sinister embrace. Sarah squinted into the darkness, her breath shallow as she took a hesitant step forward. The figures ahead shifted, their shapes indistinct but somehow familiar, almost reminiscent of neighbors she had known for years. They remained perfectly still, like grim statues waiting for the right moment to spring to life. Fear clutched her stomach. Each heartbeat echoed in her ears like a countdown clock. Ethan, Lily. Her voice wavered, but desperation pushed her forward. She'd do anything to see her children again, to pull them from the maw of that suffocating silence. The shadows around her felt alive, crawling up her ankles, whispering secrets only the children of the vanished could understand. She reached the edge of the clearing, where the moonlight splintered through the trees, a silver blade that cut through the chest of the night. Then she saw them. Ethan and Lily stood at the center of the clearing, their backs turned. They were motionless, but the way they stood conveyed a haunting stillness that set off alarms inside her mind. She called their names again, louder this time, but the wind snatched the sound away, leaving only a palpable, sickening dread. Just as she was about to sprint towards them, the air shifted. One of the shadowy figures turned. A face emerged from the gloom. Sheriff Harris, his expression hollow. His eyes bore into hers, void of recognition, devoid of warmth. "You shouldn't have come here, Sarah," he said. His voice a harsh whisper that sent icy tendrils racing along her spine. "Where are my children?" she demanded, her heart thudding in fear. The woods creaked around her, as if listening, as if they were part of something far bigger than her present predicament. "They're safe for now," he paused, lips curling into a slight smirk, "but safety comes with a price." The shadows behind him shifted, and Sarah's heart dropped as she realized the figures were not merely townspeople. They were vessels of the lost souls crammed into Maplewood's history, beckoning her with trembling, skeletal hands. Nevertheless, she couldn't falter. "I'll take their place," she screamed, desperation spilling over into resolve. "You can't keep them here. I'll do anything." At her words, the shadows leaned forward, brightening momentarily, revealing their gnarled faces etched with sorrow and anger, mouths twisted in silent screams. The sheriff's smirk widened, revealing teeth too sharp, like a wolf preparing to taste its prey. "Anything?" he echoed, and his haunting eyes glimmered. "Are you really prepared to pay that price? Love is blood, and blood is eternal." Sarah shuddered at the implications. The air felt thicker, heavier. Her children's silhouettes began to flicker, as if caught in an ethereal web, drawn toward the figures clawing at the fabric of reality. She fought to stay grounded, to avert her gaze from the depths of the eyes surrounding her, the imploring cries of the past swirling to the surface. "No!" she screamed again, stretching out her hands toward Ethan and Lily, whose forms began to waver like reflections in a stormy pond. The shadows chuckled, a low rumble that shook the leaves above her. "Join us, Sarah," they hissed, the familiar cadence turning sinister. "You are already drowning in despair. We can save you if you let go." A sudden flash of insight hit her, the photos from the ominous package. Those smiling faces, now reduced to misery, were they offering her a way out? A chance to escape this nightmare? Or would saving herself cost her the last remnants of what made her human? The moon pulsed above, casting waves of silver into the dark. Panic surged. Would she be able to stand firm against the howl of darkness, or would she surrender her essence to a chilling collective of lost souls? Just then, a loud thump echoed behind her. The unmistakable sound of footsteps breaking through the brush, barely audible over the heavy rain. Salvation or damnation? "Sarah." A desperate voice broke through, bringing her back to reality. But which reality? An urge to turn around battled with the urgency of her children's safety. The choices loomed, like specters, fear weaving tightly around her heart. She stood at the precipice. Save her children or embrace the unknown darkness herself. What would she choose? The answer seemed to slip through her fingers like sand, just as the shadows advanced, hungry for her decision. The shadows surged closer, pulsating with an eerie life of their own. Each pulse seemed to echo Sarah's racing heart, a grim reminder that time was running out. The chilling laughter around her deepened, vibrating in her bones. "Sarah." The voice called again, slicing through the heavy air like a knife. It was Tom, a neighbor whose face she barely registered through the panic. His silhouette emerged from the edge of the tree line, framed by moonlight, mud splattered across his clothes. "What are you doing here?" she shouted, the anguish in her voice blending with the unnatural cacophony surrounding her. "Get away. You don't know what you're up against." Thomas' eyes were wide, filled with terror. He stepped forward, eyes darting to the sheriff and the malevolent figures looming beside him. "Behind you!" The shadows, now hunched low, twisted and faded. The air, crackling with intent, drew closer to her children, still standing entranced at the center of the clearing. Their faces shimmered grotesquely. She could almost see their pleading expressions, a reflection of her own anguish. "Tom! Help me! They're taking them." The sheriff's smirk intensified, teeth gleaming sharp and white against the darkness. "No one can help you, Sarah." "Not now," he hissed, moving imperceptibly closer. Suddenly, she was overwhelmed by sheer force of yearning. Was a mother's love truly worth this price? The whisper of shadows was seductive, sweet like honey, reminding her of warm family dinners and gentle bedtime stories. But this wasn't the sweetness of love. This was a snare, a trap waiting to ensnare her. "Run, Sarah! Save yourself!" Tom shouted, his voice cracking under the weight of command and desperation. "Don't leave me!" she sobbed, reaching out to grasp any part of reality that could tether her to her children. The shadows migrated closer, hungry for her decision. In a whirlwind of instinct, she spun around, lacing her fingers with Tom's, abandoning the decision. "We have to go. Now." But as they turned to escape, the figures surged forward, flickering and thrumming like angry hornets, and the ground beneath them groaned with an unnatural hunger. Darkness engulfed them, pressing down with a suffocating weight. Suddenly, the world twisted. Time warped as if it was mocking her desperation. The clearing faded, and she was plunged into a swirling void surrounded by disembodied whispers, each echo taunting her refusal to join them. "Join us," they crooned, their voices a haunting melody that spun around her mind. "Give in to the darkness, no." Her voice rang out, defiance igniting a flame inside her. She pushed against the whispers but found herself trapped, suspended between dimensions. Thomas' grip loosened as the shadows began to pull him away, an insidious laugh bubbling up from below. "You chose to leave," they sneered, their voices rancid with mockery. "Tom!" She reached for him, but her hand grasped nothing but cold air. Despair seared her heart. She fought against the darkness, grasping for the light any semblance of hope. What she wanted most was slipping away. Sarah. It was her children. Their voices sliced through the black, and she spun, searching frantically. "Help us!" they cried, their tiny forms flickering on the edge. "Don't you understand?" Sheriff Harris interjected, his cold laugh wrapping around her like chains. "Everything leads to a choice, and you've already chosen. Will you lose everything for the ones you love?" As she stared into the murky depths of chaos, the swirling void offering glimpses of Ethan and Lily, a chilling thought gnawed at the edges of her consciousness. Could saving them truly mean her own obliteration? She bit her lip, nearly tasting iron upon her tongue. Time was of the essence. "No, I can't let you take them." "Then come, Sarah," the voices implored, now painfully familiar yet alienated. "Bring forth what you owe." Willingly, panic surged again as shadows reached out with long bony fingers, and the town's history whispered into her ear like an infectious lullaby. Her heart raced. Every breath became constricted. As darkness and light collided, choices loomed, leaving an agonizing decision. Would she be able to summon enough courage to fight back? Or would she surrender to the voices demanding a sacrifice? The only thing she could see now was the flickering red light of her children, slowly merging into the shadows' caress. What will she decide? And at what cost? The shadows enveloped her, a suffocating cloak that seeped into her skin, wrapping around her like a serpent. Panic surged as she strained against the darkness, the whispers morphing into a deafening roar that drowned out her own thoughts. "What do they want from me?" she screamed into the void, each echo swallowed by the hungry blackness. Images of her children flickered before her, fleeting flashes of laughter and warmth. "Ethan, Lily," she called, her voice cracking, but no response came, only that ghastly laughter, creeping closer, laced with an unsettling blend of malice and hunger. "Join us." It hissed again, the shadows elongating, crawling closer, their shapes twisting into fangs and claws. The sensation was real, grating against her senses, a reminder of the tangible horror looming over them. She felt her heart pounding, urgency igniting a wildfire of fear. Tom's voice broke through, sharp and insistent. Remember who you are, Sarah. You're not lost. Fight. But how could she fight when every breath pulled her deeper into a chasm of despair? The calm of her thoughts shattered like glass, revealing the raw panic beneath. She willed herself to be brave, yet the shadows pushed against her like a tide, hungry and unrelenting. With sheer will, she turned to the flickering lights. Ethan. Lily. She cried again, her voice rising into a chant, desperate and broken. I'm here. I won't let you go. For every ounce of doubt filling her, a flicker of hope ignited somewhere within. The shadows recoiled, as if stung by the strength of her love. Could she twist this emotion into a weapon? With renewed resolve, she thrust her hands forward, as if to grasp her children. Back off. You won't take them, she yelled, and her own voice surprised her. There was authority in it, echoing her motherly instinct as she pushed against the dark. Suddenly, the air crackled around her like static, revealing fleeting glimpses of her children's faces, now tinged in fear and confusion. Mommy, they shouted, reaching out, shadows wrapping destructively around their forms, pulling them back. Help us. She took a breath, feeling a surge of energy coursing through her as if the earth had responded to her resolve. No longer would she bend to sorrow. I'll save you. The words were imbued with power, cascading through the suffocating darkness. The shadows shuddered, twisting and writhing, the malevolent figures shrieking in rage. You cannot resist, they howled, yet something shifted, a crack in their ominous hold. Just then, a glimmer of light flickered at the edge of the void, pulsing gently as if beckoning her. The shadows hissed, retreating upon its arrival. Momentarily blinded by the brilliance, Sarah squinted, drawn to the radiance like moth to flame. Mommy! Her heart almost exploded at the twin chorus, their voices growing stronger, filled with life. They needed her, and that flicker of light felt like a lifeline pulling her through the dark. But a new chill swept through her. Although the shadows shifted, it felt less like defeat and more like a moment to regroup. What price will they demand? Echoed in her mind. The sheriff's voice loomed ominously, deep and resonant, tearing through the dim glow. They'll demand something. And you know what it costs. The warmth of love wrestled with the icy dread of sacrifice flooding her thoughts. As she reached for her children, the shadows coiled around her hands, threatening to draw her back into their gaping maw. Choose, Sarah. Save them or save yourself. The whispers urged, triumphant, taunting her at the edge of her sanity. She trembled, fear and desperation merging as she swallowed the bile rising in her throat. She could feel the weight of existence hanging by the thinnest thread. Suddenly, the ground beneath her vibrated with feral energy, shaking her resolve. As the two worlds clashed, a warning burst forth, alerted her instincts. What price would the shadows exact for her escape? Would it be worth the cost? Would she fight for their light or be consumed by the very darkness that haunted them? The shadows thickened, twisting with anticipation, hungry for her decision. The flickering light dimmed as she gripped the place that divided sacrifice and survival. What would she ultimately choose? The answer lingered in the air, electrifying and desolate. The light flickered, a heartbeat of hope in a realm laden with despair. Sarah felt the heat of it wash over her, a comforting glow that fought against the cold clutch of shadows. Her children's cries pierced through the chaos, filled with fear, their delicate images hovering just out of reach. Mommy, we're scared. Ethan, Lily, she shouted, reaching further toward them. The shadows wove tighter around her, sharp tendrils twisting like eels, stinging her skin. She could hardly breathe. Let them go. The power surged through her, igniting an inner strength she didn't know existed. Do not fight. The shadows screeched, an unholy chorus. Embrace the darkness. You are one of us now. Desperate, Sarah focused on the flickering light that pulsed with the hope of reunion. No, I won't let you take them. Her cry was primal, raw, shaking the very foundation of their torment. She yanked at the darkness, pulling, clawing, feeling it give way just slightly. For every inch she fought, the shadows shrieked in fury. They were not friends but merciless predators. "You will pay," they hissed, a collective sneer echoing around her. "Your sacrifice is coming." The terror gripped her heart tighter. "What do you want?" she gasped, feeling her resolve fissure under the weight of their evil. The shadows coalesced, forming images, grotesque versions of her children's faces warped in pain. "Join them, join us," bile rose in her throat. This wasn't just a fight for their lives. It was about her soul. If she faltered here, she would doom them all. "Tom," she shouted, her heart pounding against her ribs. "Help me. I need you." Silence enveloped her in response. No comforting gaze, no guiding words. Just the oppressive situation that pressed down like concrete. Suddenly, the ground trembled again, fracturing the darkness. A thin sliver of light shot through, cutting a path toward her children. They spread their small hands, desperately trying to bridge the gap, the shadows clawing at them as they dived into the darkness, hungry for more than just Sarah's heart. "Mommy!" The anguish in their voices stung her ears like knives. The shadows tightened their grip, longing to drag her away, to erase her memory and share her essence among their ranks. "No!" she roared, stepping forward, her feet dragging against the ground as the shadows fought for purchase. The light surged, a radiant wave surging through her veins, electrifying her limbs. In that moment, clarity washed over her. She was a mother first, everything else followed. "Please, I choose them," Sarah cried, the words sharp and resolute. As she concentrated, she felt the tide begin to shift. The shadows recoiled, letting loose a cacophony of screeches that sent chills up her spine, their forms writhing, contorted in anger, aging her skin beneath their icy grip. "What have you done?" they wailed, and in that moment of defiance, the shadows hesitated. "Your love isn't powerful enough," they taunted, but deep down, she sensed the fear in their voices. Maybe she could turn this nightmare around. She pressed forward, the light throbbing brighter in response. "You'll let them go. You'll lose, not me." The shadows quivered, the fabric of their existence tearing at the seams, as if the very essence of the dark was unraveling. But then, a deeper rasp echoed from the depths. "She's chosen it," hissed, and the shadows began to solidify again, coiling around her. "Ethan! Lily!" she screamed. The ground heaved violently beneath her, a cataclysm of shadows and light, and just as she thought she was winning, the world tilted sideways. Everything spun, and she felt a pull stronger than before yanking her toward the abyss. What if she could fight against it? What if the shadows had underestimated her? But the question remained, would she pay the price they demanded? As she toppled forward, the light flickered once more, battling against the onslaught. Would she lose her children to the darkness? Or worse yet, would she lose herself? The shadows' whisper grew louder, a deafening chorus, promising devastation. And in that breathless moment, just as she reached for the light, a sinister truth hit her. What if survival meant becoming one of them? The fear settled deep in her bones, tightening with each passing second as she spiraled toward an unknown fate. The world blurred, shifting into shades of gray, as if the very air conspired to suffocate her scream. Just as Sarah thought she was about to tear free, a cold hand wrapped around her ankle, anchoring her in place. Panic clawed at her throat, felt like drowning in ice-cold water, lungs burning, helpless. She fought against the grip, but it tightened, dragging her deeper into the shadowy depths. "Mommy!" The wails of her children echoed in her ears, drawing her back. Sarah shut her eyes tightly, willing herself to resist, to lean into the flickering light that now seemed so far away. The darkness hummed around her, a whispering void that taunted her with forgotten memories. "Join us, Sarah," a serpent-like voice hissed. "Leave the pain behind. All will be yours." Her heart raced, a wild drumbeat drowning out the shadows' coaxing lies. They painted terrible pictures in her mind: failure, loss, a world without her kids. She couldn't let that happen. She needed to fight against it, but every ounce of strength felt siphoned away, leaving her numb, lost in a nightmare she couldn't escape. "Help me!" she roared again, desperation igniting a thread of energy she didn't know remained. For a moment, she felt it, a connection, a pull toward the flicker of light. Pulsed, vibrated, strengthening her resolve. Sarah reached out, grasping for that warmth, like a lifebuoy in stormy seas. "Mommy!" The cries grew louder, dissolving the shadows' malevolent laughter. The children, they were out there. She focused fiercely, one thought, one purpose. "You can't have them," she bellowed, the very fabric of her soul linking with each syllable. Without warning, the darkness erupted in frenzied fury. "Resistance is futile," they screeched. "You will be ours." Sarah's vision tunneled, and for a split second, she glimpsed Ethan and Lily, their faces pale with fear, their small hands stretching out as if they wanted to break through some invisible barrier. The sight filled her with a mixture of hope and desperation. She was not alone. She had to fight, not just for their lives but for their very souls. "Let them go," she screamed, and a surge of defiance filled her. The shadows writhed, their forms distorting in a furious dance of rage. The ground trembled beneath her, a rumbling echo of her internal turmoil. With every ounce of willpower, she surged forward, blasting from the very center of her heart. The shadows recoiled, hissing, as light erupted in a dazzling flash. It was intense, warming, burning, the kind of light that could sear away darkness. But just when Sarah thought she could reach them, a wave of icy wind slammed into her, scattering the light like fire on water. "You fool! This is the fate you chose." A figure emerged from the shadows, taller and darker than the rest, its eyes glowing like coals. "Accept the dark, or lose them forever," it whispered, its voice dripping with malice. "Tom!" Sarah gasped, sensing something familiar in that dark mass. "Help me, please." But the figure laughed, a sound that chilled her to the bone. "Your love can't save you. You must decide, Sarah. Choose wisely, your choice holds power." As the shadows tightened around her again, her heart pounded with the weight of the ultimatum. Would she plunge into the darkness, risking everything to save her children, or would she sacrifice herself, letting them go free while being swallowed whole? Seconds felt like hours as the shadows closed in, a relentless tide. Would she let the darkness consume her? Would survival come at the cost of her very essence? And then, just as despair began to settle in, a distant sound broke through the chaos, a frantic banging from above. "Mom, you have to wake up. Please wake up." The voice was unmistakably Tom's, real and alive, almost tangible. But in that swirling void, did she dare to believe it? Would she answer, knowing every moment spent in indecision pulled her deeper? The darkness crept closer, the stakes climbing higher. Who would she become if she chose the light? If reality merged with deception, where would it lead her family? Uncertainty pricked at her. She knew something had to give, and time was running out. Sarah's heart pounded, each thud rattling her bones with fear. The cold grip on her ankle tightened, and the shadows twisted around her like serpents. She could almost taste the bitterness of despair. "Mom, you have to wake up." The voice cut through the darkness, clawing at her sanity. It was Tom, her husband. She could feel the warmth of his love. But could it reach her in this cold abyss? "Help us!" echoed the voices of Ethan and Lily again, the sound reverberating in her chest. Was it an impossible dream, or was it reality wrapped in deceit? The choice loomed heavy, draping over her like a suffocating shroud. With a burst of strength, she lunged toward the flickering light. Pain lanced through her body as she fought against the icy tendrils of the shadows. Every inch felt like a mile, her strength waning as doubt crept in. Was she capable of wresting her life from these are the claws of the darkness? "Mom, you have to wake up." Tom's voice came again, more insistent, anchoring her frail resolve. The sound cut through the pain and terror, a beacon calling her back. But could she trust it? Decide. The towering figure hissed, its eyes blazing a hellish red. Freedom for them or madness for you. Choose. In that dark moment, Sarah felt her resolve shift. Her choice would not just determine her fate, but that of her children resting safely in their beds, unaware of the evil looming. She surveyed the shadows encroaching like a predator closing in on its prey. The air crackled with malevolence. You'll never have them, she bellowed defiantly, her voice echoing against the oppressive darkness. But the shadows only laughed in response, their laughter cold and devoid of warmth. They swirled and began to take form, images of her failures, nightmares she never wanted to remember. Each visualization felt like a dagger, twisting deeper as despair rose like bile in her throat. Join us, Sarah, they chanted, a hypnotic rhythm echoing around her. Despite the weight of their words, a flicker of warmth persisted, guiding her thoughts. The light pulsed again, brighter this time, as though it sensed the urgency of her choice. She could feel it rising, the connection to her family grounding her. Tom! She cried, leaning into the warmth as the shadows shrieked in rage. Suddenly reality shimmered like a mirage, and for an instant, she could almost see the outline of her children, arms outstretched. They were so close, and then darkness crashed over them. The chill enveloped her like freezing water, and panic ignited anew. No, not again. But then, just as despair began to pull her under, her own inner voice broke through the chaos, fierce and unwavering. I will fight, she declared, stubbornness flaring like a match. The shadows writhed, their forms contorting, unsure. Mom! Hurry! Tom's voice rang out, laced with desperation. It spurred her forward. The shadows recoiled, and she felt herself swinging back towards the light. The darkness shrank in terror, howling like wind through a tunnel. In that moment of clarity, she understood something essential. Love forged the strongest weapon against evil. She grasped the flicker, summoning her memories of laughter and warmth, feeding them to the light. Yet an unexpected realization struck her. The cloaked figure was still looming, whispering vile promises that danced at the edge of her consciousness. Why did it seem so familiar? As Sarah fought to remember, a new voice broke in. It wasn't Tom, but another, a voice she didn't recognize, malevolent and alluring. Your husband will not save you, Sarah. You've come so far without him. The ground trembled beneath her. For just a moment, everything felt unsteady, and shadows threatened to claw their way back. Would this voice lead her down a path of darkness? The flicker pulsed more strongly, but now uncertainty wrapped around her heart like a vine. The choice was changing shape and time was slipping fast. Where would she land? Would the next choice save them all? Or would the truth be far worse than the shadows she faced? Desperation overtook her as she plunged into the light, but the darkness held its breath, waiting. The moment Sarah dove into the light, it expanded, engulfing her in a blinding radiance. Forgotten moments flooded her mind, laughter at park picnics, cozy evenings spent reading together. She clutched the memories tightly, willing them to keep the shadows at bay. But even as the warmth enveloped her, she could still hear the distant cries of her children, twisted and muffled by the darkness surrounding her. Sarah. Tom's voice splintered through again, filled with a dissonant mix of urgency and dread. The words warped like a funhouse mirror, stretching reality into something grotesque. We need you. Come back, please. The piercing tone of his plea pushed her further, deeper into the light. But beneath it, the shadows writhed, whispering promises dripping with venom. He.s. lying to you, he doesn't know the truth. Their voices slithered into her mind like coils of fog, wrapping tighter and tighter around her resolve. Join us, Sarah. We are your true family. They jeered, their figures flickering with malice. Your children are safer in the dark, where we can protect them. What can you do against the world beyond these shadows? Fear curdled in her stomach, but something burned within her, a flicker of defiance ignited by love. No, she shouted, forcing the words through clenched teeth. You won't take them. They need me. With that, the light surged once more, radiating warmth against the chill of despair. She shot forward, propelled by a newfound conviction. Yet, the shadows recoiled, shifting closer, their faces morphing into familiar shapes. Ethan and Lily, eyes wide and pleading, lost in a maelstrom of darkness. "Mom, help us!" They appeared and disappeared, their figures dissolving like fog. The sight struck like ice. "Please, Mom!" Their voices echoed like a siren's call, enticing her to stay and sink into their world. "Stay with us." Sarah, another voice joined, this one more sinister, coaxing and beckoning. "You know you want to. It's easier here." Rattling chains filled the air as the shadows twisted violently. "How could you abandon your family when they need you most?" In that hellish moment, Sarah's heart raced. What if letting go was the only way to keep them safe? The very thought chilled her. Each heartbeat hammered with the urgency of choices untold, the echoes of those voices weaving a spell so intricate it left her breathless. "Mom, wake up!" The fiery urgency of Tom's call broke through again, clear and sharp. His voice steadied her, cutting through the wavering despair like a sword. Eyes widening, Sarah focused her thoughts. The warmth of the light pulsed rhythmically, resonating with her determination. "You don't understand what family means," she shouted back, wrestling against the shadows with each word. "You will not tear us apart." But the darkness only chuckled, a low, rumbling sound that set her teeth on edge. "You're outnumbered. The choice is always yours. Can you really fight the shadows of your own making?" As they pressed closer, shadows threatening to snag at her edges, Sarah felt panic rising. The cold clawed at her ankle again, dragging her down. She glanced back towards the flickering light. Would it be enough to protect her? Did she even know the way back? Suddenly, Sarah realized this was not just a fight for herself. It was a battle for not only her children, but the very essence of her family against the tendrils of despair creeping in. Yet, the shadows grew, the voices intertwining until they melded into a cacophony that drowned out hope. Time was racing away like grains of sand slipping through her fingers. With a surge, she reached into the raging light and screamed. Enough! Boundaries shattered as the brilliance burst forth, expanding wildly around her, illuminating even the most hidden corners of the darkness. But the echo of uncertainty lingered. As the shadows clashed with the light, she felt a disorienting whirl. Would the opposing forces draw strength from her fear, or shatter into oblivion? A single glimmer caught her eye, a distant flicker pulling at her heart. Was that Tom? Or merely another deception? Through impending chaos, she stood on the precipice, resolute. "I will save you," she cried, as reality spiraled and twisted around her. But as she leapt toward the glimmer, the shadows shrieked and lunged. Would they claim her, or was she bold enough to break their dark spell? The question loomed as the ground shuddered beneath her feet. Would the light lead her home, or would it swallow her whole? As Sarah lunged toward the flickering glow, the world around her shattered into a kaleidoscope of colors. The light merged with the dark in violent swirls, stretching her senses to the brink. She felt weightless, suspended between the clutches of shadowy despair and the embrace of radiant hope. The shadows howled louder than ever, their whispers morphing into growls, reverberating like a storm through a desolate night. "Come back, Sarah!" the voices shouted, and she could feel their breath on her skin, hot and foul. They tugged at her soul, luring her with promises of safety. But the faces of Ethan and Lily flickered behind them, distorted yet incredibly familiar. "Mom, please," she fought to hold on to her will, pushing herself further toward the light as if it were a lifeline. Just a little more, she thought. But the closer she got, the more her surroundings twisted. New shadows formed, and suddenly, she was no longer alone. Figures emerged from the dark, faceless, shrouded in cloaks that seemed woven from the very essence of despair. "Leave now. Your family doesn't belong to you anymore," one hissed, its voice a chilling blend of familiarity and unfamiliarity. The words struck at her core, a seed of doubt rooting deeply within. Would they really be better off in the darkness? The thought clawed at her mind, echoing louder than the cries of her children. "Lies," she panted, They need me. And I need them. She recoiled at the very mention of abandonment, her heart thundering in her chest. Each pulse echoed their fading cries, driving her onward, forged by love and fear, just as she felt the entangling shadows tighten around her. A surge of light transformed the space, blindingly bright, banishing the encroaching darkness. She emerged into a strange realm, a place that felt half real and half dream. It was a vast white void, stretching endlessly, where her thoughts echoed and footprints vanished upon impact. Mom, the whisper came again, warmer, more desperate. The world distorted as she turned towards the source. There, among the silver mist, were Ethan and Lily, cautious but real, their eyes shimmering with unshed tears. Help us, please. Her heart squeezed painfully at the sight. I'm here. I won't leave you. Sarah rushed forward, but they stepped back, swallowed by the swirling limbo. A barrier shifted between them, opaque yet present, as though the air itself separated them with a suggestion of encroaching darkness. You can't fight what you don't understand. A voice taunted from the shadows, jagged and angry. It raked through her skin, and she felt the walls of the void closing in around her, the light flickering as if it struggled against some unseen force. Stop wasting your energy. A shadowy figure shrieked. Stay. Embrace true peace. It approached, the features becoming clearer, a distorted face of a friend long lost, twisting into a cruel smile. The recognition sent chills down her spine. It happened in an instant. No, you won't trick me, none of this is real. She willed herself to believe the light would guide her home, resolve sharpening through despair. Sarah stretched out her hands, pressing against the barrier. Lily, Ethan, I'm coming. A sudden, primal roar erupted from the shadows, shaking the very ground beneath her. Tendrils of darkness lashed out, snatching at her wrists like serpents, trying to pull her back into the void from which she came. The moment stretched, raw and charged. Would the light be enough? Could she free them all? She strained against the grip, heart racing, ready to fight with every ounce of hope she had left. But as she fought the chains of darkness coiling tighter around her, realization hit her like a slap across the face. What if the shadows weren't just the enemy, they were part of her, manifestations of her own fears and failures? Breathing heavily, she whispered, I will not be your prisoner. The determination surged anew, and she felt the light in her gut flare brighter than ever before. But just as hope ignited, a chill swept through the space, freezing her inside, as a loud crack split the air. The shadows cackled, their voices rising in unison, drowning her screams. This will be your end, or worse, your beginning. As the light dimmed and shadows danced like flames around her, Sarah's vision blurred. She strained harder, but the darkness laughed, growing stronger. Would brave determination lead her to victory, or would she discover a terrible truth locked within herself? The choice hung in the air like a noose, waiting to tighten. What would Sarah uncover in this heart of shadows? The chaos spun faster as Sarah fought against the shadows, her heart hammering with fear and desperation. She could feel the tendrils tightening around her, squeezing the breath from her lungs. She knew she had to reclaim her children, but the darkness whispered lies that raked at her soul. Join us, give in, it hissed, promising peace if only she would surrender. But with that thought, another fire ignited inside her. No, she cried, voice cracking but strong, echoing through the vastness. You're not real. Determination surged, and as she grasped at the flickering light, she held onto the love she felt for her children, willing it to burn brighter than any darkness. The shadows shrieked in anger, flailing wildly, but she pushed forward. She summoned the images of her family. Bedtime stories, laughter by the fire, lazy weekends spent baked in the sun. Each memory stoked the flame, guiding her heart back towards the light. Ethan, Lily, she shouted, a battle cry born out of sheer will, as she surged forward against the tendrils that lashed out for her. For a moment, clarity struck like a jolt of electricity. The monsters she faced weren't just external, each shadow represented her fear, her pain, the voices of everyone who had ever doubted her ability to keep them safe. You have no hold over me, she roared, spinning away from the grasping darkness. Suddenly, a break in the shadows appeared, a shimmering pathway leading directly to her children. "Mom!" Ethan and Lily cried, their voices hopeful, piercing through the shroud of fear. Their forms flickered like lanterns in the dark, growing clearer as she approached. With every step, the shadows shrank, howling in defeat as light surged forth, exploding in a crescendo of brilliance. Together, Sarah shouted, extending her arms toward them. The shadows writhed, bringing the icy gusts of despair. But she didn't falter. She focused, imagining the warmth of their hugs, the joy of family. The power of hope surged through her veins like molten fire, breaking the chains that held her. As her fingertips brushed against Ethan and Lily, the ground beneath them trembled violently. For a heartbeat, it felt as if time and space conspired against their reunion. Yet Sarah held tightly, pulling her children into a fierce embrace. "We're together, and we're leaving," she cried, feeling their warmth seep into her skin. The shadows shrieked, the sound melding with an otherworldly howl, and suddenly they surged forward, ravenous, drawing nearer in a desperate attempt to reclaim their lost prize. But Sarah wouldn't give in. With her children in her arms, she drew from the core of her strength and thrust their joined hands toward the light. "Go!" she screamed, the intensity of her voice ripping through the darkness, heralding their escape. The light exploded, a beautiful burst of white that consumed them, and she felt the shadow's grip releasing in a shattering cacophony. The world warped and twisted, reality trembling until Tom's familiar voice broke through the chaotic force, pulling her back into a concrete world. Her eyes blinked open, and she was flung out onto the familiar, rain-splattered ground of Maplewood. The storm now dissipated, leaving only the smell of wet earth in the air. "Mom!" Ethan and Lily clung to her legs, their faces lit with relief and love. Sarah's heart swelled as she bent down to cradle them, waves of warmth washing over them. Relief washed over her, a tide that battered against the shoreline of fear and despair. They were safe. They were okay. Tom rushed to her side, eyes wild with concern. "I thought I lost you. I was so scared." She met his gaze, the gravity of everything they had faced crashing over her like a wave. "It's over. Whatever haunted this town, it's behind us." As she spoke, the clear skies above them revealed a sliver of rainbow, a fragile promise of hope in the wake of the storm. With every memory of the shadows swirling away into nothingness, she felt lighter, stronger. In that moment, Sarah knew that they would face whatever was ahead together. The shadows would not return, not while their love held firm. But, just as they began to chime back into the rhythm of their lives, leaving the horrors behind, a chilling whisper brushed against her ear, a reminder that darkness could always linger at the edge. With a shiver, she took a deep breath, returning to the warmth of her family. Life would have its shadows. They faced them together, and as they walked, side by side, the past became just a memory. If you love stories like this and you want to experience more thrilling tales, you need to subscribe to this channel now. Don't wait another second. Hit that like button to feed the algorithm and ensure you're always in the loop with the latest and greatest. We want to hear from you, so flood the comments section with your thoughts, reactions, and theories. And remember, share this story with at least 5 friends who absolutely need to see this conclusion. This is your moment to show your support and keep the adventure alive.